In sports, the scoreboard doesn't tell the full story, but Netflix does. Stories about dads who happen to be world-class quarterbacks and a battle for the heart, soul, and direction of the multi-billion-dollar business of F1. Whether you're a diehard fan or you're brand new, Netflix has the stories for every type of fan. You can watch these incredible sports stories like Quarterback, F1 Drive to Survive, Untold, and many more now on Netflix.
I'm Elise Hu.
And I'm Josh Klein, and we're the hosts of Built for Change, a podcast from Accenture.
On Built for Change, we're talking to business leaders from every corner of the world that are harnessing change to reinvent the future of their business.
We're discussing ideas like the importance of ethical AI or how productivity soars when companies truly listen to what their employees value.
These are insights that leaders need to know to stay ahead.
So subscribe to Built for Change wherever you get your podcasts.
This is Optimal Finance Daily, episode 2505, Hitting the Bullseye, Why I Was Wrong About Rent versus Buy, by Helene Massicotte of FreeToPursue.com. And I'm your host and personal finance enthusiast, Diana Merriam. We're going to get right to today's post as we optimize your life. Hitting the Bullseye, Why I Was Wrong About Rent versus Buy, by Helene Massicotte of FreeToPursue.com. Mr. Free to Pursue broke the no gift rule this past Valentine's Day / 15-year anniversary, and his present made me rethink my position on rent versus buy. Shame on him, and I love him all the more for it. I'm a rent versus buy gal all the way, other than for long-term home ownership. If you intend to buy and hold without refinancing in perpetuity, then yes, buy the house. My reasoning is simple. With renting, you can get to use pretty amazing stuff on occasion at a fraction of the cost of ownership. Owning stuff requires you to pay for depreciation, even true to a certain extent when you buy used, maintenance and repair, storage, and more of your money is invested in stuff than needed. It also uses up mental energy because clutter, also known as too much stuff, is emotionally draining. The free to pursue buy versus rent rule. Unless you know for a fact that you're going to use something very regularly, preferably daily or at least weekly, don't buy, rent, or at the very least, buy used. The gift that changed my perspective. On February 13th, my husband was bugging me to go to the shooting range. We go once in a while, and I quite enjoy it, but I was pretty tired that day and said I would pass, even though I had made that very suggestion a week earlier. Then, as we were walking Bell, I decided that we should go, and I would get into it once we got there. On the way to the range, my husband broke the news. We weren't going there to rent and shoot. We were on our way to pick up my bow. My immediate reaction wasn't anger or resentment. I was overwhelmed with shock, joy, and anticipation. I couldn't believe he was considering doing this for me, buying me something I wouldn't have purchased of my own accord, which I'm sure is why he did it. Despite my objections and questioning whether this purchase made sense, he stubbornly kept on, focused on our destination. Mr. Free to Pursue is not one for gifts, and I'm quite okay with that. The last time he surprised me in this way was almost 20 years ago, when he bought me a kick-ass exhaust pipe for my CBR 600 F.I.R.E sport bike. I was jumping up and down like a kid who just found out she was going to Disney World. Well, after looking around and then selecting and sizing my bow, I got to try it. It was like magic. It fit me properly, the draw weight was good, and it felt like butter. I was having such a great time with it that I didn't want to leave. It was a completely different experience compared to using a rental. Because I'd never had a compound bow of my own, I didn't understand all the variables that make for a good experience. Mr. Free to Pursue did. And what a difference it made. Before. All I had to go with was the math. Cost of a bow, $709 Canadian to cover the cost of the bow, the case, the release, the arrows, and tax. Of course, there would be the offset of resale eventually. Cost of rental, $15 per visit. Cost of range time is about $10 per visit. For simplicity, I assumed that I would always go to the range, which made this fee irrelevant for the buy versus rent. My conclusion: I would have to go to the range nearly 50 times over a few years to justify a bow. That meant I would never own one, and I was perfectly good with it. After. Here's my new perspective. My shooting is ridiculously accurate compared to what I could achieve with a rented bow that isn't adjusted for a 5'2" left-handed woman, which makes the experience a whole lot more fun. I'm downright giddy. Moreover, my purchase included a lesson to get to know the equipment and increase the potential for me to stay with the sport. It was amazingly helpful. I also got 1 month of unlimited range time with the purchase, which I didn't know was a factor. I've had it for just over 3 weeks now, and I've only missed 5 days because I'm hooked. 2 of the days I missed were due to being too sore and needing to give my shoulders a break. What a wonderful problem to have. Most importantly, I want to go play more often now because of the heightened experience that only comes with ownership of a tool that's made for me. It's so much more fun. Because I'm having the real experience now, my rent versus buy equation has tipped in the favor of buy. But paradoxically, I would never have known it before buying. Customization matters. I need to adjust my rent versus buy rules to address the issue of customization. When what we buy includes customization that's not available from a rental, and that this customization is integral to the experience over the long term, buying may be the right choice. How can we determine whether the customization is integral to the experience? By having a trusted advisor help show us the difference so that we can make a proper evaluation for ourselves. Mr. F.I.R.E is not a spender. He told me repeatedly that owning my own bow would be a completely different experience, but I just didn't buy it. He had to show me by helping me test out the product, which led me to pull the trigger, and I'm over the moon that he did. Frankly, I don't know how he's going to top this one. Luckily, he won't have to worry about it for another 20 years. You just listened to the post titled, Hitting the Bullseye, Why I Was Wrong About Rent versus Buy, by Helene Massicotte of F.I.R.E.
I'm Elise Hugh.
And I'm Josh Klein, and we're the hosts of Built for Change, a podcast from Accenture.
On Built for Change, we're talking to business leaders from every corner of the world that are harnessing change to reinvent the future of their business.
We're discussing ideas like the importance of ethical AI or how productivity soars when companies truly listen to what their employees value.
These are insights that leaders need to know to stay ahead.
So subscribe to Built for Change wherever you get your podcasts.
If you've been feeling overwhelmed with anxiety lately, try listening to a guided meditation on the Meditation for Anxiety podcast. Meditation is a proven, natural way to help you calm down and dissolve stress so you can feel lighter and happier. So subscribe for free today to the Meditation for Anxiety podcast by searching for Meditation for Anxiety on your favorite podcast player.
I'm not sure absolutes work very well when it comes to our decisions around money. To say things like, you should never eat out, you should never buy things new, or like this article's initial assumption, you should always rent, is a very simplistic way of looking at spending. The reality is that we will likely spend money in ways that are not optimal, and we won't know it until afterwards. Or we can come to realize that something is actually worth the cost. I think it's super important for us to be intentional and mindful about spending, but I also recognize that it's impossible to always get it right, and that's totally okay. So for example, this year on my birthday, my Midwestern gentleman treated me to a fancy $400 steak dinner. It was okay, but we both agreed that the experience and food simply wasn't worth $400. We could have assumed that we don't value expensive nights out and commit to not doing it again. However, not too long after that, we celebrated another birthday with a dinner and expensive karaoke experience. And that night was 100% worth every penny. In either case, we couldn't have known how we'd feel about the spending until after. But because we have a foundation of financial stability, we're not spending money we don't have, and we're paying attention, we have the privilege to experiment in this way. And that'll do it for today. Have a great day and weekend, and I'll be back here tomorrow where optimal life awaits.